unfortunately, I recorded a whole 20-minute video for this, and for whatever reason, it didn't save. So, I have to do it over again. This is eugenics and supporting your child, mutilating him or herself physically because they have a delusion that they're not the sex that they actually are, is bad. And even if, supporting that aspect of your child, saying, yeah, go mutilate yourself. Yeah, you're not who you actually are. You're someone else. You're upholding their delusion, and we don't uphold delusions in people, except for transgenders. They're the exception. This is very common with adopted people. Adopted people very frequently have extreme problems because they're adopted, and we are meant to be with our biological families. Obviously not all the time. There are some really fit adoptive parents out there. Clearly it's not Robert De Niro, though. And more often than not, when this happens with males, they become addicted to pornography, and then they become trans about it. Here's the other thing, is that even if you don't have surgeries about this, it's still very damaging to quote-unquote socially transition. I've heard that from a lot of people who did not get surgeries, did not get hormones. They just socially transitioned, right? Maybe went by a different name and used preferred pronouns. It's still very damaging. It's still very psychologically taxing to do that. And it's also not okay to play along with it. Grown adults do not play... Sorry, let me rephrase. Sound-minded adults do not play ongoing games of pretend and expect everyone else to join in. Only non-sound-minded adults do that. Only mentally ill adults do that. And I would go so far as to say that people who go along with that bullshit are likely also having some kind of mental struggle. But anyway, this comment that I'm going to show you was in response to one that I made where I said some normal shit that I'm fucking always saying, you guys. No one can change their sex. It's also not loving to tell your child that he or she can be something that he or she cannot be. There's nothing loving about that. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, this moron, who is a woman over the age of 55, commented in response to my comment. And this is what she said. Where's your medical degree? Medical professionals use the DSM-5 to diagnose mental illness. You don't need to be a medical professional to know that gender dysphoria is a bullshit problem. It's a bullshit illness. Or you know what? Even if it's not a bullshit illness, the way that the medical industry is dealing with it is bullshit. Transgender is not a mental illness in the DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Why wouldn't I know that? Obviously, I know what that is. And just because it doesn't say something in a book doesn't mean that it's right. Or just because it does say something in a book doesn't mean that that's right. You fucking moron. But anyway, the DSM-5 does include gender dysphoria as a diagnosis, but this refers to the distress some transgender individuals experience due to the incongruence between their gender identity and their assigned sex at birth. You guys, this woman is over 55, like I said, and she is using the phrase assigned sex at birth. This is one of the main reasons that I screenshot and document and post and share things like this, is because this is a very new historic level of stupidity. This is a very new historic level of willed and purposeful and mindful stupidity and ignorance that is being performed to better entertain the popular rhetoric of the day, which is the trans cult rhetoric, okay? We really have an over 55-year-old woman saying things like sex assigned at birth. We know for a fact that there are only men and there are only women. And saying sex assigned at birth is, I can't get over how stupid that is. I really cannot. But anyway, the term transgender itself is an umbrella term for individuals whose gender identity differs from their assigned sex, and it is not a psychiatric diagnosis. Okay, so she's saying that transgenderism is in the DSM-5, but it's not classified as a mental illness. Isn't that still concerning, though, that it's in the DSM-5? Because it's actually still a mental illness. They may not classify it that way, but it is, obviously. Here's a more detailed explanation. Gender dysphoria. I don't think this woman typed this out. I think she got an AI Google synopsis and copy and pasted it in here. And maybe she wrote, "Where's my medical degree?" at the top. But even if she didn't do that, that's how this reads. This reads exactly like a reiteration, a regurgitation of these definitions and these bullshit terms and these bullshit statuses of the DSM-5. Like I fucking haven't heard it before. Sorry, I don't know if I said this or not yet, but this woman is claiming to be non-binary. This over 55-year-old woman is claiming to be non-binary. And her username is something to the effect of "women do not need men." So you're really going to be bold enough to make your username "women do not need men," but call yourself non-binary? Really? 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 Anyway, here's a more detailed explanation. Gender dysphoria. This diagnosis in the DSM-5 focuses on the distress experienced by some transgender individuals. It is not intended to pathologize being transgender itself, but rather to recognize the psychological suffering that can arise from the conflict between gender identity and assigned sex. I don't care. I don't care. Like, these people think that throwing this information at me is going to change my mind. They think that I'm quote-unquote not educated. Guess what, you dumb over 55-year-old bitch. I've been in this shit my whole life now, just about since I was 15. Okay? I was a transgender soldier, warrior, ally back when I was 15 because I thought it was cool. You guys know that's a thing within psychology, is that people pay more attention to someone who's very, very unique because it's more interesting. Because someone who's extremely unusual is more interesting than someone who is a lot more common with their problems. And that's why transgenderism is a fad that's going to go away one day. But anyway, it is not intended to pathologize being transgender itself, but rather to recognize the psychological suffering that can arise from the conflict between gender identity and assigned sex. There's no such thing as assigned sex, you dumb fucking bitch. Someone who's old enough to remember the women's feminist movement in the 1970s would know that. But you're pretending to be stupid on purpose to entertain the rhetoric of the trans cult. Like I said, this is fucking historic stupidity, and that's why I'm documenting it, because people need to know that people actually really believe these things and asserted these things as fact and thought that tossing out definitions was some kind of argument. Like it was some kind of point to be made. Anyway, the change from gender identity disorder to gender dysphoria in the DSM-5 was intended to reduce the stigma associated with identifying as transgender. Okay, who cares if it's called gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria, because they're both a mental illness. They're both a form of a delusion and psychosis. If you believe something that is really not possible, you're experiencing psychosis. You're experiencing a delusion. Okay? It is not possible for a woman to become a man, and it's not possible for a man to become a woman. Period. Like, yeah, disorder does more denote that it's a disorder, and I wish it was still called that, because it is that. Gender identity disorder. You know what? Maybe I wouldn't call it gender identity disorder just because gender is a religious belief. I would call it, maybe I would call it, sex denial disorder. There we go. Because you're denying your own sex. Hello? Okay. Distress and impairment. The DSM-5 criteria for gender dysphoria emphasize that the incongruence must cause significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning for a diagnosis to be made, according to the American Psychiatric Association. Treatment. Gender dysphoria is a clinical diagnosis used to help individuals access necessary medical and psychological support, such as gender-affirming care and therapy. Well, guess what? More on gender-affirming care is medical malpractice, full stop, all of the time. Gender-affirming care is medical genital mutilation of men and women. Gender-affirming care is eugenics. Period. Also, it's interesting that it says diagnosis used to help individuals access necessary medical and psychological support such as gender-affirming care and therapy. I'm sure in a DSM, if you picked up a DSM, it would, with other disorders, it would have a whole huge fucking laundry list of options of how to treat something. Because there are multiple tactics to treat different mental ailments, right? But with transgenderism, it says, such as gender-affirming care and therapy. Okay, so your therapist should also entertain your delusion? Your therapist should lie to you, outrightly lie to you. And this is a big lie, right? This is a huge lie. This is not saying like, oh, maybe you embarrassed yourself at the party, but people will probably forget that when they likely, in fact, won't. You're saying, yeah, you are exactly what your delusion tells you you are. How is that not medical malpractice? How is that not inherently abusive? I asked this woman multiple times to explain to me why she was claiming non-binary. Why did she herself claim non-binary? This is what she said. Non-binary icons span all ages, with prominent figures ranging from pioneering gender theorists to the young stars driving today's pop culture representation. Okay, notice how she hasn't answered my question? And I blocked out everything on her except for her gray hair so I could prove to you that someone this old really is latching on to this bullshit, to this trans cult bullshit. You can't make this shit up. Also, she didn't answer my question. She didn't say, I claim non-binary because, etc., etc., etc. She didn't say that. She's giving me the definition. She's giving me a definition or examples of non-binary, which is not why she claims non-binary. I don't think she can think for herself at all. A lot of these people can't. Let's be real here. Okay, people identifying as non-binary do not fit into a strict male or female category, and their ages reflect the diversity and history of this community. What? Their ages reflect the diversity and history of this community? First of all, it's not a community, dipshit. You're making that up. It's an internet club where you write the same word on your profile, and then that's a community? Miss me with that shit. No, the fuck it isn't. You clearly don't even know the definition of a word community. Anyway, trailblazing and historic icons, these foundational figures and theorists have shaped gender studies and advocacy. Okay, see, she clearly didn't write this. She just copy and pasted it. Kate Bornstein, age 78. An influential author, playwright, and performance artist known for pioneering works like Gender Outlaw. Judith Butler, age 69, a preeminent philosopher, gender studies teacher, and author of Gender Trouble. Okay, I don't care. So we have a mentally ill 78-year-old and a mentally ill 69-year-old. Who cares? Because other people are mentally ill, that makes it legitimate? Because other people are claiming this bullshit term, that makes it legitimate? No, the fuck it doesn't. And no, the fuck it never will. Just because you can find examples of other dipshits doing the same thing doesn't mean it's a good thing to do or the right thing to do. And you are contributing to the erasure of womanhood if you're a woman claiming to be non-binary. You can be a woman and like whatever you like. You can be a man and like whatever you like. But you're always going to be a man or you're always going to be a woman. It's not a secret. Okay, I think that's enough of that. I'm so tired of this shit, you guys. I really am. But enjoy this historic stupidity from a Gen Xer. You're welcome.